Chapter 10.7, Write and graph equations of circles. Let x, y represent any point on a circle with center at the origin and radius r. So the origin is the point 0, 0. By the Pythagorean theorem, x squared plus y squared equals r squared. This is the equation of a circle with radius r and center at the origin. Alright, so here we have a circle and the center is right here at 0, 0. That's the origin. And they just constructed a right triangle with the radius right here and center at the origin. So if we took this point right here, the x coordinate of this point would be the length of this part of the triangle, and the y coordinate of this point would just be the length of this part of the triangle. And they simply use Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, we know that c is always the hypotenuse, the side across from the right angle. So in this case, the radius r equals c. So the c squared is just going to be r squared. A and b are the other two sides, so we can let the x equal a and we can let y equal b. So a squared is just going to be x squared and b squared is just going to be y squared. So this would be the equation of a circle with center at the origin. Example 1, write the equation of the circle shown. Alright, so we said a minute ago, using Pythagorean theorem, the equation of a circle at the origin is simply x squared plus y squared equals r squared. We can see this circle right here. The center is at the origin. Okay, so once again, that point is just 0, 0. And the only thing we need to find is the radius. So that's pretty easy. We can just count. If we count from the center, 1, 2, 3 units. Okay, so the radius is just 3. And then we're going to plug in 3 for r. So we have x squared plus y squared. And r is 3, so r squared is just going to be 3 squared. And of course, x squared plus y squared, 3 times 3 is just 9. So that's it. We just had to find the radius and plug it in. Now, not all circles will be centered at the origin. So since the center is a special point, they came up with the letters h and k to represent the coordinates for the center of a circle. Okay, of course, h is the x coordinate and k is the y coordinate. And x, y is just going to be a point on the circle. So that is simply a point on the circle. All right. Now, what they explain in this section is that you can get the circle equation from the distance formula. So if you recall the distance formula, it's going to be the square root of the change in x, so x2 minus x1, quantity squared, plus the change in y, y2 minus y1, quantity squared. And then you take the square root of that to get the distance. So what you want to do for this formula is apply it to the radius. All right. We know the length or the distance of this between these 2 points. We know the length of the radius is represented by the letter r. So in place of d, this distance right here is just r. And if we did the square root And we'll let this point on the circle be x2, y2, and we'll let the center equal x1, y1. So if we wanted to apply the distance formula here, subtracting the x's, we would do, I'm sorry, I circled the wrong thing here. We would do x minus h. So subtracting the x's, we're just doing x minus h, and that gets squared. And then subtracting the y's, we're going to do y minus k, and that gets squared. Alright, so I just plugged in x for the x2 value, and I plugged in y for the y2 value. I plugged in h for x1, and I plugged in k for y1, and that's what you get. Finally, if you just square both sides, squaring the r is just r squared, and squaring this mess right here just undoes the square root. So the equation for the circle is going to be r squared equals x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. Alright, and that is the equation for the circle. Alright, h comma k is just the center like we said. And of course r is the radius. So that's the equation for the circle. That's considered standard form. Example 2, write the standard equation of a circle with center 0, 9 and radius 4.2. Alright, so it's actually pretty easy. We said a minute ago the equation for the circle is going to be x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. I know in the previous example I had r squared over here, but it's the same thing. They are just equal. Alright, and we said h and k are the coordinates for the center. So we can see right here the h is 0 and the k is -9, and the radius equals 4.2. Alright, so it's pretty simple. We're just plugging in. Alright, I'll do it in a different color here. So we start with x minus h, and h is just 0. And that's squared. And then we have y minus k, and k is just -9. So watch the sign, it's minus k, so minus -9. And that gets squared. And r squared is going to be 4.2 squared. Alright, x minus 0 is just x, and that's squared. So we have x squared plus 2 negatives in a row is positive. So right here we have y plus 9. And that's squared. 4.2 squared on the calculator. That is 17.64. So this right here is the equation of the circle with this center and this radius. Okay, please try guided practice number 2. Write the equation of the circle with this center and this radius. And here's the equation. Alright, pretty simple. We have our equation. We'll start with x minus, and the center, the coordinates are h comma k, and the radius r equals 7. So for the value of h, we're plugging in -2 for h, but it's minus -2. So minus -2, and that gets squared. And then y minus k, k is going to be 5. So y minus 5. and that gets squared. R squared is going to be 7 squared. Alright, the two negatives make it positive. So that's just x plus 2 squared. Y minus 5 squared doesn't change. And 7 squared equals 49. Final answer. Notice the plus minus signs for the center are reversed in the equation. So the negative 2 becomes positive 2. The positive 5 becomes negative 5 in the equation. Example 3, the point negative 5, 6 is on a circle with center negative 1, 3. Write the standard equation of the circle. Alright, so they actually drew the graph of the circle just so you can see it. Here's the center, here's a point on the circle. Okay, but it's actually completely unnecessary to get the graph, but I'll just show you on the graph real quick. Remember, the coordinates for the center are h, comma, k, and a point that is on the circle is just x, comma, y. So when we write our circle equation, the only thing we have to find is the radius, r. Alright, now we can easily find it right here from the graph, but I want to show you how you can find it without the graph. So I'll just use what we were given and not the graph. Alright, so we're still using the standard equation of the circle. So that's just going to be x minus h squared and y minus k squared, and that equals r squared. Okay, we said the point on the circle is just x comma y, and we said the center is h comma k. Alright, so in this case we have to plug in these points in order to get r squared. Alright, so let's see. For x, we're plugging in negative 5. And that's minus h. H is negative 1 in place of h squared. For y, we're plugging in 6 minus k, and that's 3. And that whole thing is squared. And it's going to equal r squared. Okay, two negatives in a row make it positive. Negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4, and that's squared. Keep the parentheses for now. 6 minus 3 is 3, and that's squared, and that's going to equal r squared. Alright, negative 4 squared is 16. 3 squared is 9. And 16 plus 9 is 25. So that's what the value is for r squared. We don't need r because the equation calls for r squared. Alright, so really, now that we have this, you want to plug it in. And also you want to plug in h comma k. Alright, so we need to do this and this in the original equation, that's all. Alright, so instead of rewriting this equation, I'll just use this here. R squared is 25. So r squared is 25. Actually, I'll just rewrite it. I don't want to confuse you. Anyhow, r squared is 25. So for r squared, that's 25. And we have x minus h. We said that h was negative 1. So h is negative 1. And that's squared. And we have y minus k. But we said k was positive 3. So that's minus 3. And the whole thing is squared. The two negatives make it positive. So this is just x plus 1 squared. And that is the final answer. So that's the equation in standard form. Okay, please pause and try number 4. They say the point -1, 2 is on a circle and the center is 2, 6. Write the equation. So here's the equation once again, and I'll give you a hint. The point that is on the circle is going to be used for x and y, and the center is going to be used for h and k. Alright, so in place of x right here, we're going to use -1 minus h, which is positive 2, and that's squared. In place of y, positive 2 minus k, positive 6, squared equals r squared. -1 minus 2 is -3, still squared. 2 minus 6 is -4, still squared, and that equals r squared. -3 squared is 9. -4 squared is 16. And that equals r squared. And 9 plus 16 is, of course, 25. So you want to take that r squared and plug it in. And also, the center, h comma k, needs to be plugged in. Alright, I'll do it right here. So we have x minus h, which is 2, and that's squared. We have y minus k, which is 6, and that's squared. And we just calculated r squared to be 25. So that's it right there. This equation right here is the final answer. Example 4, the equation of a circle is x minus 4 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 36. They want us to graph the circle. Now, if you match up the standard equation to what we are given, remember the equation is x minus h squared and y minus k squared equals r squared. So in order to find the center, which we said was h comma k, you have to change the plus minus sign on each of these numbers right here in order to get h and k. Since x minus h is x minus 4, that means h is going to be positive 4. Alright, and same thing here. Negative k is positive 2. So that means k is going to be negative 2. So if you want to find the coordinates for the center from the equation, you have to change the plus minus sign on each of these terms. Alright, so h is actually positive 4 and k is actually negative 2. And r squared equals 36. So in order to find the radius, we just take the square root of both sides. Okay, and r is going to equal plus minus 6. However, the radius cannot be negative, so we're just going to keep positive 6 for the radius. Alright, so these 2 points, 4, -2, represent the center. And the radius is 6. That's all we need when we go to our graph paper. Alright, so let's go to the graph paper. The center is 4, -2. The radius is 6. So 4, -2, 4 on the x, start at the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then -2. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then -2 on the y. That right there is going to be the center. Okay, and it said the radius is 6. So if we count 6 units from the center, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in the other direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do all 4 directions. From the center, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, so the center is there. And I'm just going to draw the circle. Alright. And I can just erase this other stuff here. And I'll keep one radius in. So that is this graph of the circle. Okay, this right here is the center. And that's 4, -2. And the radius is 6. Okay, please pause and see if you can graph the circle with this equation right here. Alright, once again, you see the equation is -h and -k, so you need to change the plus minus sign on the numbers in parentheses. So the h value is not -4, the h value is +4. And the y value is not +3. I'm sorry, the k value is going to be -3. So again, I just changed the plus minus sign on the number in parentheses, and we can see that r squared is 16. So taking the square root of both sides, r is just 4. Okay, we don't need the -4. So the center is going to be 4, -3. And the radius is 4. Alright, so let's do the center first. X equals 4. So start at the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4. Y is -3. 1, 2, 3. So that's the center right there. And the radius is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so we'll just draw the circle on the ends of each radius. And I'll erase the rest of it here. I'll leave in one radius. And that's basically it. The radius is 4. and the center was 4, -3.